Greetings, I'm Professor Hobo, and welcome to another HOBOTECH News product review. Back in the summer of 22, I reviewed an interesting 1200 watt product by the brand Vigorpool. It could parallel with itself to double both battery and inverter power, which is a trick usually reserved for larger power stations. Fast forward a year and a half later, and now they have a 700 watt version that's even more portable. But is it any good? Let's find out.
HOBOTECH.
Inside, the Captain 700 sports a 672 watt-hour lithium iron phosphate battery rated at 2,000 cycles to 80% capacity. As for size and weight, it has a small footprint of only 14 by 10 by 8 inches and weighs in at a mere 20 pounds. Now, just like its bigger brother, this model also has a color LCD screen, as you can see here, with all the information you could possibly want about input-output watts, time to charge and discharge, an animated battery icon with percent display, along with various other informational icons. This Captain rocks a 700 watt pure sine inverter with 1300 watt surge out of 4 outlets here on the back. As for ways to charge, there are the typical 3. First, of course, is through AC wall power at 600 watts with the included power cord. Note there is no charging brick here. Using that cable takes the Captain from 0 to warp 10 in about an hour and a half. You can also slow charge at 1/4 impulse speed or 150 watts in about 6 hours. Of course, it also charges from solar with the included MC4 to Anderson adapter cable at a maximum of 240 watts, good for topping up in about 4.5 hours. Last and certainly least is charging by 12 or 24 volt vehicle. It does come with the included what they call a carport adapter and allows you to charge a Vigorpool in 7 hours and 4 hours respectively. As for 12 volt outputs, the Vigorpool offers a trifecta of 12 volt outputs, starting with the typical cigarette lighter socket adapter, good for 10 amps, along with a pair of 5521 barrel plug outputs, good for 3 amps each. All outputs are regulated at 13.0 volts. Also on the front of the 700, it sports a pair of 60 watt USB-C power delivery outputs, along with a pair of 16 watt USB-A quick charge ports. There are no USB inputs offered on this product. And for those that have devices that can charge wirelessly, there is a single 10 watt wireless charging port up top, good for fast wireless charging. And of course, just like its 1200 watt bigger brother, you can actually parallel 2 units together using this cable. This cable transmits both power and data signal between the 2 inverters. So you can double your pleasure, double your fun.
Double pleasure is pleasure, you double the gun.
Offering double the capacity and double the inverter output, essentially turning a pair into a single 1400 watt beast, able to run a lot more applications. There's also a pretty cool lantern style light on the side, which we'll check out here in a bit. Also, Vigorpool does have their own Bluetooth and Wi-Fi app, and both are supported in this product. Note the wireless is actually turned off by default, so you will need to turn it on by pushing this button up front that says IoT reset. That'll actually turn it on before you pair it with your phone. Vigorpool offers a standard 2-year manufacturer warranty on all their products. And of course, I took the Vigorpool Captain 700 here into my secret laboratory where I performed all kinds of crazy experiments, including, yes, of course, let's do it together now, a double-fisted
Bang, bang.
battery capacity test. As for the results of the DC test, the Captain 700 scored a whopping 636 watt hours out of 672 for a very impressive and above average 95%. Unfortunately, the results weren't so impressive from the AC test, where it scored 560 watt hours out of 672 for only 83%. So why the big difference? That was actually answered in the next test. And that next test is the phantom load or parasitic drain test, where we leave the Vigorpool turned on for 4 hours with the AC inverter on with nothing plugged in, and then again 12 hours on the DC side with nothing plugged in, and we calculate how much power it wastes just sitting at idle. So the results for the DC consumption were pretty incredible. It used absolutely nothing, or 0 watt hours over a 12-hour period, or 0 watt hours over 24 hours. Now, before you guys start freaking out in the comments, yeah, I know it's impossible. It didn't use any power at all in this test since the screen was on for the full 12 hours. However, the consumption was actually so low that it never changed off of 100% charge. Therefore, it wouldn't allow me to charge it even through the solar port, which is how I recharged these during this test. So for all intents and purposes, the phantom load on the DC side is insignificant. Now, this is excellent news for those of you planning to use this product to power 12-volt refrigerators or other DC appliances like CPAP machines. Now we're going to get the answer about the AC consumption test, because over a 4-hour period, this actually used 60 watt hours, or about 360 watt hours over 24 hours. So if you left the inverter on, it would totally kill the product in just under 2 days. Now that in itself isn't really the worst result, but it does tell us that the AC inverter consumes about 15 watts of power just being turned on with no load. That does seem like above average power consumption for only a 700 watt inverter. Pure sine wave check under load. We have a pure sine wave at 120 volts, 60 hertz. Inverter capacity test. This is where we determine how much power can we pull out of the inverter of the Vigorpool Captain 700. Okay, the number you want to watch for is right here. We're currently pulling 200 watts. Okay, there we are at 700 watts. Let's go ahead and continue to increase the load. Oh, so we tried 800 watts and it immediately failed. 8 1/4. 920. So as soon as you pass 900 watts, that is it. So it looks like if we try to exceed 900 watts, it just cuts it right off. So this next test is the 5-minute sustained cooling or heat soak test, where we run it at its 700 watt capacity and find out, does it do anything crazy? Does it start singing and dancing, smoking and drinking, calling some other names, TPing its neighbor? We're going to find out, because sometimes you run these things at capacity for a while, they start to smell or smoke or do anything weird. We want to make sure that if you just buy an individual unit, you're not going to have any problems. So there you have it, 700 watts. The timer is started. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, we're back. We just passed the 5-minute mark at 700 watts for the Vigorpool Captain 700, so it passed that test. So what about inverter noise? Let's check it from a meter away. So that's 48 decibels at maximum, so that's at maximum load. So this is actually really quiet. The fan noise is pleasant. It's not really hairdryer sounding or anything. It's not loud or annoying. So while I'm waiting for this thing to discharge for its next test, so anyway, this is the app. Shows a picture of your thing, battery percentage, temperature, turn on your SOS light, flashlight, auto shutdown time, standby time. It'll let you choose from 40% up to 100%. So say you want to just top up the battery to 80% for long-term storage, that's where you set it. You can set slow and fast charging here and the screen brightness. This is OTA, that's supposed to be firmware updates. All right, max charge rate. Let's start with solar. I am using the included Vigorpool solar adapter, so they do include an MC4 to Anderson. So we have it set at 12 volts, 12.6, so it rounds up to 13. It is pulling 8.2 amps and is charging at 95 watts. That's expected for 12 volts because they're expecting you're going to plug this in your cigarette lighter in your car, limit it to 8.2 amps so it doesn't blow your 10 amp fuse. Okay, so at 18 volts, it's now pulling 12.6 amps for 210 watts. So you can have a 200 watt solar panel on this that's only providing 18 volts and it'll still crank it at 210 watts. So let's take it up to a higher end solar panel voltage, around 24 volts, or a 24 volt vehicle. Let's see what it has to say there. It's now pulling 10.7 amps, 240 watts. It does say in the manual 240 watts is the maximum at 30 volts. So let's go ahead and take it up to 30 volts. 30 volts, 8.7 amps, again, 240 watts. Let's slowly take it above its 30 volt limit and see when it cuts off, and hopefully we won't burn the thing up. Oh, there we go. So right around 32, 33 volts, it will shut off and cut off the solar charging. So there you have it. The maximum is 240 watts, and you can get that at lowest voltage is 20 volts. So pretty much any 200, 300 watt solar panel you can put into this and try to keep it under 30 volts because that's what this is actually rated for. Now this does have a fast and slow AC charger. Let's go ahead and plug it in. I'll leave it on fast first. Okay, on fast charging, it just instantly goes to 600 watts. That is the maximum charge rate of this unit. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the app. I'll just let the camera roll and we'll go ahead and switch that to slow charging. Okay, so it bumps it all the way down to 150 watts. That is definitely slow charging. Let's put it back up to 600 again and see, does it actually kick the fans on? So let's go ahead and measure this fan noise from a meter away. So about 46 decibels, slightly quieter than the inverter fan. I can tell it sounds like it's a different fan that's running now. It's definitely a little bit quieter. So let's go back into the app, switch it down to slow charging at 150 watts. See if the fan turns off. I'm gonna suspect it will. Okay, to verify the results, at 150 watts slow charging, the fans do not come on. So it is completely silent charging when you run it in slow charging mode. So what about the next feature? Simultaneous charging, because when you can charge from AC and DC, sometimes you can do it faster. So let's go ahead and put it back on fast charging mode from AC. Let's go ahead and turn on our fake solar at maximum 30 volts and see, does it charge any faster if you're charging from both sources at the same time? Okay, so what it looks like it's doing here is it's doing what's called solar priority charging. So we're charging from AC wall power, and we're also charging from solar simultaneously, but it's taking solar as a priority. Now, if I unplug this AC power, we're actually getting 240 watts from solar. So let's go ahead and plug the AC power back in. Remember, this is set at maximum. Interestingly, the solar jumps up to 13 amps, and we're maxing out still at 600 watts. You don't charge any faster when you do simultaneous charging, but what it does is supposed to save you money by charging at priority solar. So if you have solar panel plugged in and AC at the same time, it's going to use the least amount of AC power possible and the most power from solar. Everyone's favorite controversial test, the UPS test. Now this does have a UPS feature built in, meaning uninterruptible power supply. So if you have this plugged into the wall and the power goes out, whatever is running on the inverter should stay running. Now, Vigorpool claims this is a 10 millisecond switchover time, so plenty fast enough for any computer you're gonna have. Now, maybe not for a giant server rack in a business. In that case, you're gonna run multi-$1,000 UPS anyway. You're not gonna use a couple $100 solar power station to run a server rack. We have this thing charging at 600 watts. It's at 76% state of charge. We always do this with the battery drained a little bit to make sure the switchover is fast enough even if the battery is charging. Laptop's running about 32, 33 watts. All I have to do is hit this little red button. For those of you new, this laptop has no battery, so doesn't have any kind of battery backup. People gripe about this test all the time that I don't use a full tower PC with water cooling and dual monitors and everything else. You don't need any of that for this test. It's either going to be fast enough to switch over a computer or it's not. You can watch the 30 or 40 other videos that I've done where this laptop does sometimes shut off. Depends on the quality of the UPS built in. Ready? 3, 2, 1. It's still on. Awesome. So you can see it's still pulling 32 watts. The power incoming is now off. Let's turn it back on, make sure there's no bugs turning the power back on. Now we just simulated a blackout. Lightning, thunder, boom, power goes out. Guess what? You don't lose your work. And then when the power comes back on, it doesn't freeze up your computer. Look, everything's working just fine. Now, just to prove to you that I am plugged into the inverter, and there it goes. So there you have it, UPS feature passed. Next test, DC output. So we're gonna go ahead and run 12 volts. That sounds like a strange number. It's probably 13 volts rounded up. Let's go ahead and see how many amps we can pull. Looks like we can pull 10 amps at 12.7 volts. This next test is the USB output test. So we have a pair of 60 watt power delivery outputs. Now you cannot charge the unit with USB, but it does provide two 60 watt outputs. Can it supply 60 watts times 2? In fact, it does. 122 watts out. We got 60 coming in there and 58 coming in there. Next test, wireless charging. This does have a wireless charging pad up top. So let's go ahead and throw my phone on there. You don't have to do anything. It's always on. Now you can turn it off in the app, but it doesn't use any power unless you actually put a phone on it. So don't worry about it being left on. It's going to kill your battery or anything. It does say fast wireless charging. So this is a fast charger. It's not just a regular wireless charger. It's only pulling 8 watts according to the meter here. Usually fast wireless charging is more than 10 watts, but my phone says it's fast charging, so we'll just roll with it. And it is a 10 watt pad, so it should be able to pull close to 10 watts. Amp interference test. Does the Vigorpool Captain 700 have a clean enough inverter to run a small power amp without interference? 3, 2, 1. How about that? It is whisper quiet. So the Vigorpool is actually perfect for running power amplifiers. That means if you're doing ham radio, you're rocking out on a band on stage, you're using a PA system, you can actually use the Vigorpool to power your equipment. Of course, there's one final feature we have not covered yet, and that is the lantern style light on the side. Now, does it have SOS? Is it going to flag down our little buddies upstairs? Well, if you were paying attention to the app earlier, you know the answer to that question. So let's go ahead and start pushing the button and see what happens. So 1 press is low light. 2 press is bright light. 3 press is seizure mode. So if you're looking to have a seizure, that's perfect. 4th press, cue the music. It's SOS mode. Let's flag down our little buddies upstairs. Welcome back, guys. It has been a little while since we've seen you. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. You guys are floating around and coming down from the skies. Welcome back. And there you have it. The Captain 700 supports a unique feature where you can parallel 2 together. And not only does it combine the batteries together for double the watt hours, but it actually combines the inverters together for double the inverter powers. This is one of the few on the market that do this. They don't really click together here, but as you see, I do have them stacked, so stacking them is not a problem. The cable in the back is plenty long enough. You can put them side by side or on top of each other. Full disclosure here. As you've been watching this video, you probably noticed my appearance changing a little bit, the background changing a little bit. That's because when I originally did this test with 2 Captain 700s, it didn't work. In fact, it didn't work at all. The inverters barely talked to each other. It was running wattage that wasn't there. I wrote to Vigorpool. I said, you know, this feature is not working. So what they decided to do is fix the problem, and they sent me 2 more. I sent the other 2 back. They figured out what was wrong. It's been about 4 months, 4 or 5 months since I did all my other testing on this product. So what I have is my oscilloscope here, the one that people seem to like better. It's clear to read. And I have my voltmeter. The inverters right now are running at 125 volts, 60 hertz. And as you can see, the sine wave looks perfectly fine. Now, as you know, each one of these can do 700 watts on their own. So combined, they will do 1400 watts and sometimes a little bit more. I just tested this off camera. It seems to work fine, but I didn't really push it too hard. I just wanted to hook it up, make sure everything worked before I turn the camera on, not waste my time again. On to the test 4-something months later. Here we go. Let's see how much better it works now. I got this one charged up to 95%. This one's charged up to 75%. So yes, you don't actually have to have these charged to the same state to hook them up. So here is the parallel cable. It goes into one battery port to the other. So you got one thick power cable. It does include data, so it does have data pins in it as well as power. It does say in the manual you can use the inverter on either product. So you can plug in a couple things up here, plug a couple things down here. They will all combine together for the output. All right, so you can keep an eye on the sine wave here, you keep an eye on the volts here, and then the watts for each right here. I'm gonna go ahead and increase the load by 100 watts, 800 from each for 1600 watts. Sine wave again is unchanged. We are down to 121 volts, but that's fine. I'm pulling 1800 watts now, which is 9 and 9. Sine wave is starting to get a little out of round, but we're still at 120 volts. We should not be able to do this really for much longer. So 950 on each. The sine wave is now starting to freak out, and there we go. Now what's interesting is that the sine wave doesn't cut off because the power station stays on. This one actually errored out. This one has the load on it, but it will auto reset. 1900 combined seems to be the limit because then it cuts off right there. All right, let's see if we can pull 800 watts from each sustained. That's 1600 watts total. That's 200 watts more than it should be able to do. Let's see if we can do this for at least 5 minutes. And no, we didn't. It lasted about 30 seconds and then errored out. As you can see, we have an error 3, so I'm going to go ahead and reset the inverter, and we're going to try again at a lower setting. All right, we're now going to go for 1500 watts combined, which is 100 watts over recommended. Let's see if it'll make it to 5 minutes. All right, at 1500 watts, it made it for a minute, so it seems like we're going to have to just try it at 1400 watts. Which is its rated capacity, and we'll just start the test over again. Here we are coming up on 5 minutes, no problems. I'm gonna go ahead and just continue for another 5 minutes to make sure this is rock solid. Okay, we're back. It's been 10 minutes. Sine wave is still perfect. Everything is working fine. No errors at 1400 watts. So the parallel feature on this has been fixed. It works perfectly fine. I haven't found any issues with it whatsoever. In fact, it's running rock solid at 1400 watts, and it's not even that loud. Now let's go ahead and do a sound pressure test. So 52, 53 decibels from a meter away. That's with both machines running, so it's a little louder than a single machine. There is one other thing to note. I know I'm going to be asked. What happens if you plug this into AC power? Do both charge from one when they're connected in parallel? Well, I'm going to show you right now. You can see we're getting 600 watts in here and 0 watts here. So the inverter cable in the back is just for sharing the inverter power. It does nothing else. It does not transfer AC power. It does not transfer DC power or solar. It doesn't do anything except synchronize the two inverters, and so they can talk to each other. So if you want to charge these, you got to charge them separately. Now you can charge them both at the same time with the AC or DC. That's fine. So yeah, you can pump in your maximum solar into this, your maximum solar into this, or your maximum AC into either one. That's fine. You also need to be aware that when you plug AC power in, it does disconnect the UPS system on this. And that means you cannot use this in a UPS mode when it's set up in parallel configuration. And if you think about that, it makes sense, because when you're plugging this in from grid power, this one's not getting grid power, so it can't act as a UPS. One other thing to note, when you actually press the inverter button on the back of one, it does not automatically turn on the inverter on the other one. Now this is a feature you see on a lot of other power stations that can parallel together. This one's not the case. I'll show you. I'll turn this one completely off. Now I'll turn the inverter on this one. And the inverter comes on just fine. You hear the click, but this one does nothing. So even if I go ahead and turn the top power station on, and then I go ahead and push the AC power button on the bottom, you'll see it lights up and it says that it is paralleled. But this one does not turn on, and it doesn't say it's paralleled. You have to physically turn the inverter on the top one as well, and then they will sync together. You'll get the little icon that shows up telling you that they are synced together. So you'll see as soon as I turn this on, the inverter comes on, and then the battery sync icon comes on. AM radio interference. So we're gonna go ahead and put the AM radio on a blank station in front of it, turn on the different inputs, see what happens. Okay, power station's off. This is now USB, DC, and the AC inverter. So you can clearly hear the interference with the AC inverter. I'm going to go ahead and turn the AC inverter back off. You see it clicks off. Now the DC side doesn't seem to make much noise. So we do have a lot of noise from the AC inverter itself. All right, next is going to be the EM and EMF tests. So we're getting a base rating here. It says 2 to 3. Let's go ahead and turn the power station on. Not much change there at all. Let's put on the DC side. Okay, it's up to about 8. Not much of a big deal. Let's turn on the inverter. Still not too bad. It only raised it up to about 20, which is still in the normal range. Of course, the closer we get to the inverter, the worse it gets. So we're getting some beeps there. Turning off the inverter does drop it. Let's turn it back on. Yeah, it does raise it a little bit. The electric fields meter is actually not registering very high at all, which means it's actually pretty good with electric fields. And that's actually a pretty good result for the inverter in here. So what do I think about the Captain 700 from Vigorpool? Well, it doesn't really break any light speed records, but it does everything that it's supposed to, and I really can't find a major fault with it as is. Of course, if I was designing a product like this, I wouldn't copy the design of a major player and then not offer more competitive features with a better warranty. For example, something like this should absolutely have 100-watt power delivery outputs and better solar charging support with at least a 3-year warranty. The competition's offering like 5-year warranties on all their stuff now. And a gripe for me is that the AC power button should not be on the back. It should be on the front with all the other power buttons. Of course, again, they copied a design that was bad in the first place. Now, Vigorpool as a company does seem to have some pretty solid offerings with clean inverters and relatively quiet fans. The DC results across the board on this product are fantastic, and it beats out a lot of the AAA players. The super low overhead makes it perfect for those running DC fridges or CPAP machines. The USB support is well-rounded and will satisfy all except the biggest power players that require 100-watt power delivery for their laptops. And while the big brands are still putting 1-watt useless flashlights on their products, Vigorpool is actually using these nice, very usable lantern-style lights. And this is practically a class-leading feature. The parallel feature, tying both of these together to make one larger power station, is of course great and functions perfectly for all those that plan to buy a pair. It's unfortunate Vigorpool didn't think ahead about this and offer a discount bundle for those of you who want to buy two together. These are in fact the perfect size and weight for camping and easily tossable in a vehicle or leaving in a room or a workshop for having some remote power. Product price. The retail price for the Captain 700 is $599, which isn't bad in of itself, but of course, being the hobo king of tech cringe, I was able to nab a limited time discount code for you, the viewer, that knocks 10% off that price, bringing it down to only $539, which is 77 cents per watt. This price does include both sales tax and shipping, so that's not too shabby for a power station with the highly sought after parallel ability. As for solar, Vigorpool does of course offer their own water-resistant ETFE-coated folding solar panels in both 100 and 200 watt formats, but you are going to pay a premium if you get them. If you want to use your own panels, you can do so since they do include that MC4 adapter in the box. I do recommend choosing something under 240 watts that I've reviewed on this channel or off the HOBOTECH.tv page. Those bulletproof Boujar V6 panels that I reviewed recently are available in 200 watt format and would work perfectly on this power station. So if you're interested in the Vigorpool product line, the link and discount code is going to be in the description of this video below. I'm also going to put a discount code here at the bottom of the screen you can type in manually, along with a QR code that you can scan on your mobile device if you're watching me on TV. And it'll take you on over to the Vigorpool store page where you can check out the Captain 700 and the rest of the Vigorpool product line. Thanks for watching. If you learned something today, don't forget to give me that thumbs up below. And if you're not a subscriber already, you know what to do. That's it for now. Till next time, and Happy New Year.
Odin commands you to like and subscribe, and clean my litter box.